specifically in the Cottonwood Canyons. That committee did not address the Park City area. But the first question that we have on the Cottonwoods effort is, are you encouraging ski resort expansion in the effort, and what expansion is included? And how would it affect the One Wasatch concept to connect the resorts via ski lifts?
You looking at me down there? Sure. That was a long question. I have a hard time remembering it all. You know, I was not involved in specifically involved in the task force, but, you know, as we look at that study area, it all comes down to that epicenter of Little Cottonwood Canyon and the uses that take place on the various parcels of land there. We have been, at Ski Utah and as an industry, we hang our hat on a couple things. Number one is the snow. Again, you know, February, 60 degrees outside, so can be sometimes tricky. But we really hang our hat when we think about our competition on accessibility and connectivity. And the concept that we launched last March, One Wasatch, was a concept that I think everybody here is familiar with. And is the idea of connecting these 7 ski areas. I think when we launched it, we talk about, and if anybody's seen our presentation on it, we talked about it a little bit like one of the examples we gave was the automotive industry's rolling out of a concept car. We knew that when we rolled it out in March, that it very well may change in some way, shape, or form. Just as concept cars roll out, they are not often what you see on the showroom floor is what you see in that rollout. So we're continuing to have those discussions, and I know there has been everybody or several people on this panel have been involved in those discussions. I think the resorts all understand what's at stake, and they all know as a destination that would like to invite guests here that access and connectivity is a critical part of that.
So as it pertains to One Wasatch's, I don't know if I was lucky or unlucky to be part of the negotiation task force at this point, but you know, One Wasatch, the concept would be gone. I think interconnect, as it's been proposed for the last 30 years, as a result of those negotiations, assuming we can tie up one loose end in Alta, you know, One Wasatch would not be a reality in these mountains. And then as to the resort expansion, there certainly is some resort expansion that would take place as part of the negotiations as proposed. But there would also be protection of areas that have been proposed for resort expansions over the years that the community has really elevated to a level of making them extremely important and extremely valuable. And those lands would be preserved under what's been put out to the public for comment from the negotiation task force. And I think it's also important to bear in mind that it's not only the protection of some of these lands that those ski areas own that have been proposed for numerous developments over the years, be it roller coasters or subdivisions or ski lifts that would be permanently protected, but it's also, you know, potentially 20,000 other acres in the central Wasatch in our watershed that have the opportunity to also be protected, which we've been advocating for the better part of 30 years as well. So I think that summarizes some of the, I hope that addresses the question that was asked.
And just for the audience reference, we do have a map that's on the website that explains the specifics of land ownership adjustments in the Cottonwood Canyons. The blue areas are areas that would go into public ownership, and the orange areas are areas that would go into private ownership. So there's some acreage at the base of each of the ski resorts, as well as some on the back side of Snowbird and Mineral Basin. There's other specifics you can take a look at on the website.
Yeah, I think that map really helps. Maybe it's worth, there's been reference a number of times to the Cottonwood Canyons Task Force, so maybe it's worth just giving a little background about how that came about. When we started on this Mountain Accord effort, we set up a whole series of ways to try to help us and to structure how decisions would be made at the end and ongoing for the group. And there was an executive committee formed, and then we had systems groups that have been described. With the executive committee, there was the ability to assign some members, some participants in the effort to come together and try to work out some issues. Well, maybe not surprisingly, although I don't think we anticipated it at the front end, the competition for uses, the protection of resources, the ways to address transportation at the top of Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons have been an intense area of sort of competition among users and among trying to figure out how to address these issues. And the executive committee, the management committee asked the folks who have a direct responsibility and stake in the tops of these canyons, of Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons, to see if we could come together and see if we could come together with a proposal, which is what you're seeing now, for how all of these issues could be addressed. So we looked at transportation, we looked at protecting lands, we looked at providing for a prosperous long-term future for the ski resorts, and we had involved the three of us on this side, so Salt Lake City, the Forest Service, Save Our Canyons. We had Salt Lake County at the table in the town of Alta. We also had the 4 ski resorts, and we had Save Our Canyons and a representative of the outdoor industry gather for, it seemed like day and night meetings over a period of about 2 months to see if we could hammer something out. So what you're seeing on the map behind you reflects our best effort to date, where the basic aspects of it are that we would protect large areas of land, as Carl described, particularly on the kind of the north side of Little Cottonwood Canyon from Superior up through Grizzly Gulch, which is private land for the most part. Some other critical pieces of private land in White Pine Canyon, Cardiff Canyon, for example, and at the top of Big Cottonwood Canyon, and provide for some both private land consolidation, because it's a mix in some cases of private and public land in the base areas of the ski resorts, and in some cases to provide for some additional land in some of the ski resorts to give that base area, which is really the developed area in these canyons, the ability to move forward a little more easily and successfully. That also included providing some water that currently isn't provided for some development, and we're talking, I think, less than 150 units of development, and some restaurant-type development as well associated with the ski areas, again, in the base areas. So that's how all of this sort of pieced together. By no means I would say it's done, as was indicated here. We want us to see what public input there is, and we know that there are some remaining issues to be addressed.
And I want to emphasize that it is in no way, shape, or form a done deal. This is a proposal. It was our best shot at it after we got together, and now we've rolled it out to you. After that happens, it'll still need to go through an environmental analysis process. It'll go through a public process. It's something that the Forest Service will have to work with all of the ski areas and all of the folks around to do these land exchanges. It's not a simple process, but it is a very public process. So as you're looking at that, don't look at it and think, well, the decision's already been made, this is going to happen.